So welcome everybody. I'm Jassen Bowman from taxresolutionacademy.com. And joining us today is Nate Hagerty and Christian Jones, both from taxpromarketer.com. And I want to give everybody a very brief background of how this came about. So I've got it up on my screen here. It was a little over a month ago. Nate, you sent an email to your entire email list.
That was a bunch of emails to my entire email list, but yes.
Right. This one very specifically caught my attention. And it was about Google My Business. And you said some things in this email that really caught my attention. Most notably was some of the stats about how many businesses still haven't even claimed their listing. And you talked, you presented 9 things that you should do here. Don't necessarily need to go through all 9, but just for some background, if you could kind of reiterate some of what you covered here about Google My Business,
sure.
Everybody loves to hear the frustrations. What's your biggest frustration when it comes to your clients and their Google My Business listings, especially those that haven't claimed it yet?
Well, so I'm going to start with the intros. Those of you who don't know who I am, Tax Pro Marketer, we've been doing this since 2007. We are kind of the primary leading marketing agency for independent tax and accounting firms. We do full agency services. And by that, I mean, we're not like a website building company. We're not like a marketing services company. We take you by the hand, talk to you, figure out your goals, and align what we do according to that. And we've got options for lots of people. I'm not going to give you my link right now, but you can connect with us if you want help. But we also nerd out on what's working and what's not working when it comes to our clients and online marketing. Jassen and I have always really connected because I want to talk about you for a minute, Jassen, because the way that we first met was through your emailing, and I somehow was on your list, or I don't know what it was. It was like 7 or 8 years ago. And you just, that was longer than that, maybe a decade ago. Yeah. And you just have always been really careful and really on the cutting edge of what's happening. And, you know, I make it my philosophy in general to embrace all the people out there in the industry, see us in competition. I just want to find smart people who are doing smart things, who are treating their clients well, and link arms with them. And, you know,
agreed.
So that's how, and I know that's how you operate, and we've done a few things together because of that. But so we met, and I really do appreciate your heart of a servant, that you actually do care about the people on your list. You're not just trying to extract money from your people, which is too common. And it drives me nuts when people come to our industry and approach CPAs and tax practitioners like with that perspective. And there's too many people who do. And you are a total nerd, and I mean that like with the greatest respect, and I just appreciate you. And I always love, you know, times when we've had a beer together, just, you know, nerding out all this stuff. And you are a very smart business mind. You've built and sold various things. You don't brag about yourself that much. You've created a lot of different things, and you just take action, which I just love. So that's why you always have my attention, Jassen. And you are one of the people in the industry whose emails I also read, because you're not a hype artist, and I appreciate that. So
vice versa as well.
Yeah. You could have said more about that, you know, about me, but that's fine. But I do want to. So let me just answer your question. And I was kidding, for the record, for everybody who's paying attention. Let me just talk about what I wrote about in this email. So I think I sent it. I pulled it up. It was the 20th of November, if you're on my list. And this is about signs that you need to update your marketing. And this is one, I've done a few of these different kinds of emails, because it's not just about Google My Business, but this is a huge component of all of your businesses, whether you realize it or not, because that's the deal. Google has created a Google My Business listing for you, whether you like it or not. And the reason they've done that is because they want all of the real estate. They want all of the eyeballs. They want to dominate. They want to keep people on their platforms more and more and more so they can get clicks, serve up more ads, make more revenue. That is what they do. And look, we all have, if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, I do urge you to check that out. Marketers like Jassen and I and Christian, who, let me take a moment to introduce him because I'm going to let him really nerd out because he's actually way nerdier than even I am about the stuff. Christian is our director of search, and he is actually the one who has driven a lot of my education about this. So he is the one who's behind the scenes shooting me research and sending me stats with our clients, and like has driven a lot of our systems so that we can implement this on behalf of our people. So Christian is a brilliant mind, small business owner in and of himself, on the side, he has a side business selling fireworks. And I always joke him because he's an arms dealer, but he's here also, and pipe in, but
hey guys.
Google wants to own your attention, and The Social Dilemma kind of made it very clear that this is not always a positive development, but as business owners, we have got to be paying attention to this reality. We've got to recognize that whether you like it or not, whether you use DuckDuckGo in your personal life because you just want to not have any cookies and be private, as a business owner, you better get with the program and realize that Google is the big hairy gorilla, more than Facebook, way more than Facebook, more than Amazon in our industry. Google is king for a local professional services firm. You've got to know how it works. So they've created a listing for you, whether you've claimed it or not. When you claiming it is something that I will have Christian talk about. That's kind of 101 to everything we're going to say, because that's the first step. You actually have to manually go through a process. Christian has done this on behalf of our clients for years. Now he has a team under him that he doesn't have to do this personally anymore, but it's a big pain sometimes because you're dealing with call centers sometimes in India, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that, but it can be a pain to go through the process. Sometimes it's easy, but it's a rare case when it is easy. And the reason why that's the case is they want to weed out scammers. They don't want people creating a bunch of Google My Business profiles to game the system because of the power of these things. And that's what we were going to talk about today and what you can do to leverage that power. This is basically the dashboard that dictates how you show up in search all over Google. So if people are searching directly for you, there's a information box that shows up on the right-hand side of the search results when you're on a desktop. And it also in a different way shows up on the phone. It's like the information box, but it's also when people are looking for discovery keywords like accounting or tax, get out of tax debt, or tax problems, or tax preparation. A lot of these terms, Google has deemed them to be terms that have localized intent. And so because they have localized intent, they're going to serve up the maps, like the map section, whether prominently at the very top or as a significant portion on the side. Usually it's prominently at the very top. And then your Google My Business, there's 3 Google My Business listings that show up first. And being in that snack pack is the power position that you want. Now, if it's a keyword that somebody's searching for that doesn't have localized intent, and some of the resolution keywords might fall into that category, it actually still, Google My Business affects your organic rankings too. So it's not just if you have national ambitions. This is not just about national stuff. So that's kind of the big picture. A lot of marketing agencies are really on point with this stuff. A lot of guru types, a lot of website builder companies, they don't like talking about this because it kind of robs them of market share in a sense. They want to be able to clone you a little squeeze funnel and make you do ads, and be your primary engine for bringing in business. They want to sell you a $60 a month cheap glorified business card website and have that be the primary driver of your business. They don't like recognizing that actually those are becoming obsolete strategies. for completely opposite reasons. Okay. Google My Business is becoming, I hesitate to say more important, but at least as important as your primary website.
We're there.
The reason why I hesitate to say that it's as important or more important is because your primary website plays with it. So like they work together. But in terms of user experience, it is more important. That's right. So you've got to claim your listing right away. It is still the case that the majority of businesses have not claimed their Google My Business listing. So job one for everybody listening to this, whether it's right now or after the fact on podcast or what have you. And we actually have a podcast, and I'm going to grab this audio and I'm going to put it on our podcast too, if that's all right, Jason, as well.
Absolutely.
So job one is claim it. And then Christian, why don't you kind of do just a very 5-minute quick optimization guide, and then we can get into the ninja stuff. Okay. And maybe you can use, Jason, if there's things that you want Christian to speak about related to optimization.
Actually, I do.
Okay. Hold that thought. Before you do that, Christian, so claim your listing. To do that, search for yourself. Look for that information box, and there should be a link that says, what does it say right now, Christian? You could tell me better than me.
If you own it, it's not going to say anything. If you own it, it's under a Google Profiles control. If you don't own it, on the right-hand side in the
language they've used has changed over the years.
What
do they say
own
now?
This business? ?
Okay.
You'll see a link with that language.
Click on the link, start the process. Frickin' do that right now. Okay, you've got to. All right. Now, assuming that aside, Christian, talk about optimization, and then let Jason will interrupt, I'm sure, with things he wants to focus on.
Yeah. Again, hey, Christian Jones here. Goodness, Google My Business. Nate is right. Your website still has tons of relevance. This is not the ditch your website conversation at all. However, this is and again, Jason's crowd, I totally get it. Tax resolution, it's a national thing. You're not tied to a local district or a local area. I totally understand that, although plenty of you probably still do traditional accounting and tax services. Regardless of however you come at this and what services you're trying to focus on, national or local or a blend, Google My Business is just the 800-pound gorilla that most people aren't dealing with, period. And the process of claiming your page is what probably some of you have done, some of you are yet to do, and maybe we'll do on this call, or you'll have some questions on how to do that. That's great. But when you think about Google, you're dealing with an algorithm. And that algorithm is a set of signals, if you will. And those signals are just all over the place. The signals for how you rank on Google, it's these back-end things on your Google My Business page. It's how people engage with your website. It's reviews you have. It's your Facebook business page. All of these things are signals that contribute to your rank on Google in two places. Okay, so without ads, we're talking about two places: unpaid organic traffic to the map section. Do a search right now. It's lunchtime where I live. So do a search for taco shop. You're going to see a map with 3 businesses and then links beneath it, right? So you're going to see top 3 taco shops in your area. Call them, get directions, visit their site, and then links for websites beneath that. Ranking in both of those places is a different algorithm, both of which have to do with your website and Google My Business page in part. And the parts of your Google My Business page that really play a big role are the things that no one sees. It's the back-end factors and elements and signals that are not as obvious as simply claiming your page and having your name and phone number properly represented, although those are baselines. You won't get anywhere without those. But there's, golly, we can flesh this out more, but some of the key optimization factors, probably the most key one, which is not as ninja as some of the things we will talk about just because it's basic, is categories. What categories you select on the back end of your Google My Business page has more than, maybe a little bit less than getting the page itself claimed, but beyond that, once you get the page, the categories you select for yourself that Google My Business has pre-selected, here's your options, has more to do with how you're going to show up in your local market than anything else you'll do with this page. And that's the thing, when we get a new client and we're optimizing the back end of this page, it's like, oh yeah, I've already got a Google My Business page. And I'm just always, I don't fight this battle anymore of like, you don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot we're about to change, but it's without fail. I have never, ever come across a profile that is fully set up with the right categories. And there's really only one that makes sense for tax resolution. There's about 8 for this industry that a traditional CPA accounting firm would have, 8 to 9. But there's one that has to do with tax resolution in particular, not even directly, but as an indirect kind of synonym for this space. And so when we get someone that's their focus, that's a key to getting traffic on that front. That self-identification process within the category section is you telling Google, this is what I want to show up for. This is what I do. It is not the end all be all. If you do all those things and then you don't have reviews, and then you don't have a website that gets engagement, you don't have a conversion mechanism. See, like there's a two-headed thing here of traffic and conversion. And traffic and conversion happens on your site and it happens on your Google My Business page. You can get traffic by doing some of these things on Google My Business, but without these other elements like reviews, you're not going to get many conversions. So it's a seesaw. It's back and forth. It's both and. You can't just do one or two things and then be done with this beast. But when we talk about optimization, categories would where I'd start.
So categories, photos, these are all things that we look at, and content is also a component of it. But there's a bunch of like little ninja things they're constantly shifting and changing. Whether you have COVID stuff in place is actually a thing now, and you can indicate on your page what kind of COVID protocols you have in place. Which saw a recent stat that 67% of consumers would not use a business if reviews indicate that it didn't have COVID stuff in place. So whatever you think of COVID protocols, if you are like a vehement anti-masker, look, you can play that game, but you can live in the world of what you think it should be or the world of what is. And so especially as tax season comes around, you've got to have a plan that's communicated related to those things. So you can indicate that on Google My Business. That's a new thing within the last couple months, obviously.
Yeah. What about the lack or presence of an actual website listing? Because one of the things that shows up in both the snack pack and the full results when you click over to Maps is there's the little icon of the planet with your website there. And some of the listings have a website, some don't. How does that play into that? Because I still run into a lot of tax professionals, they don't have a website still in 2020.
That really hurts you. It
doesn't help. It doesn't help at all, because I was going to ask at the front end, and we'll figure it out as we go, but there's we've used this in presentations plenty of times. So if you've seen us talk before, you've probably seen this list of, hey, for the map, that local pack that Jason's talking about, or the links beneath it, the factors that contribute to how you rank, and engagement on your website, behavior on your website plays into both. So how your Google My Business page shows up on the map section does have a factor or an element in the algorithm for Google of what people do on and off your website. And so not having a website just eliminates this entire category of their algorithm that you could still find a tax professional who shows up in the top of Google, because again, it's not one thing, it's a bunch of things that spokes of the wheel all contribute. You can take a few spokes out in an industry that doesn't do this well and still be okay. You can be the guy that just has 30 reviews and no website and still show up, but you're not playing the game as you should, and it's just a matter of time until someone in your market does. So if you want to be safe, yeah, go ahead, Jason.
What are the top 3 or 4 things that you would recommend that a practitioner do, especially if they want to show up in the top 3 results, that snack pack on the main search result page?
I'm going to tell you what the top
3 things are. I've got it right here, Nate. I can share it with you in a jiffy here, because I'll just tell you the 3 things of what they are. If you want to show up at the top of the search results page, someone types in accountant, tax preparation, tax service, whatever. Here are the 3 things that will get you there. Google My Business signals, which first and foremost is going to be proximity to the end searcher. So the biggest factor with Google and Google My Business is location. If you're in California and you search for accountant, you will not see someone from New York because it's a localized search. There's localized intent. That's how Google has deemed this industry, even for you national folks. I get it. I totally get it. You don't need to fight me. I understand. You don't have a specific local backyard market you want to focus on. This is just how Google plays. We're playing by their rules, not by yours. That's a common question I get from existing clients or prospects. It's like, well, listen, I don't really care about my backyard. And it's like, I don't care that you don't care. This is the number one thing for Google. You can advertise still. We can target any market you want via advertising, but you will never find a tax resolution based company outside of ads with a localized search. It'll always be people in your backyard. And so that's Google My Business signal number one. Number two is categories. Number three is keyword in the business title, and so on and so forth. So like what keyword they're searching for, and if your site, if your profile, if your services that you've tagged under Google My Business align with what they're searching for. That's back to some of these other things, because there's categories, and not to confuse you, but it's going to, there's also services. Services don't play as big of a role on the back end of Google My Business, but that's a whole new thing in the last 12 months where you can now have services and then sub-services of those services. So under accounting, what are the things you do that people might want to see on the front end? Under tax preparation, what types of services or sub things can you list out? Google is just trying to index you to the nth degree. That's what they're doing. Right. That's number one. This is the first thing for the map is Google My Business, proximity, categories, keyword, etc. The second is link signals, which for you guys would best be understood as your domain authority and other pieces of authority about your website. Backlinks,
secondary listings. Yeah.
Secondary listings. If you have two websites.
So let me explain that. Have you gone through the process of making sure that your website is properly updated on all of the different other listings besides Google My Business?
Right.
Because they will scan the net to see what is the network saying about this business, and are they authoritative, like the level of your authority. So is this business authoritative? Like, do they have like their merchant circle thing? Do they have their yellow pages.com claimed? Do they have an Angie's List thing that's updated, a Yelp page that's updated, Apple Maps, Bing Local, all these things? It's laborious. We do this for our clients, but you can do this yourself, which it takes time. But like building these links across the net.
Oh, you bring up this is a tangent that we could spend 2 hours on, I'm sure. But briefly, since you brought it up, link quality. This is something I've been spending a lot of time in myself recently, because there are bad neighborhoods on the internet that you really don't want them linking to you. And then there are good neighborhoods on the internet that you do want them linking to you. For somebody that is going to tackle this themselves, what would you tell them? You know, especially, I mean, there's so many companies out there where you can buy links from, right? And so how do you evaluate? I mean, I'm sure everybody understands, okay, I probably don't want links from a pornography site to my accounting site.
Probably.
Okay? I think everybody understands that.
Good call.
But for things that may not be as obvious, what should people be looking for in terms of evaluating whether they really want to link from their site? From how do you assess that?
Yeah, sure. I can tackle that. And Nate, just FYI, I just pinged you the image of all the factors, just if you want to look.
Right. No, I cool. Thank you.
So as a matter of fact, I just had a new client sign up 2 weeks ago who had a website, and the hyphen version of his site, just like a hyphen between his business name and his local area, was a porn site, and he didn't even know.
Oh my gosh.
While we're on the topic of porn, yeah.
While we're there, I mean, that doesn't happen every day, but like you just don't know what is out there and what's linking back to you or what has robbed.
So that
sounds like time for a new domain name.
No, it is. That's danger zone. Like obviously porn, burn my eyes, but like,
right.
But it's also like a danger zone because it probably confuses the robots a little bit. Like you want clean. Anyway,
you
go
want
on,
clean.
Christian.
So here's safe step number one of the links you want: authoritative business listing profiles. The most obvious ones would be Google, Yelp, Bing, Apple Maps, Yellow Pages, Angie's List, Kudzu, Manta. You never heard of some of these, that's okay, because you'll probably never get a client from them, but
Directly.
You'll never directly get a client from brownbook.net is one that we'll set up, or some of the like. It's just not a thing that gets a lot of traffic, but what it is it's an authoritative business listing directory. It's the Yellow Pages of 2020. And Google looks at all these quote unquote Yellow Pages type websites that are just, there's a ton of them, and there's new ones every year, but there are ways to determine and distill authority and relevance to your industry, because some are more relevant to other industries and more authoritative, and it's not cut and dry. So what you would do is, if you wanted to DIY this, you would do a lot of research to figure out, not just by a hunch, but a little bit more scientifically, what are the most authoritative, relevant business listing sites that I need to have a presence on? And here's the catch: if your information ever changes or has changed in the past from a name, address, or phone number perspective, that when we talk about this area of SEO, this is really what it is. It's your NAP, your name, address, and phone
I was going to
number.
ask you about the NAP stuff. Yeah, it's hugely important.
This is your thumbprint. Your thumbprint to Google in the internet world is your name, address, and phone number. Optimization comes next. That's a whole nother thing, but at a minimum, you must be consistently represented on these profiles and on your website and everywhere else with the same structure and format of your name, address, and phone number. Google is a little bit
when you
better.
say format, do you mean?
Well, can I pause real quick? Like, nerds, settle down, nerds. Let me go back to your actual question about links also before we get into the name, address, phone number thing. So for a local business, local websites would be the place where you want links. And that's something that we can't really do for our clients, but like what that means is like the value of like a sponsorship of a local can drive or something like that is the link that it's back to your website. The value of like PR, like a news story that a local TV station might do, like to talk to somebody who's an expert on PPP or whatever, is linked to your website on their, KMF, KQ, WRBC, whatever. Thanks. That's the value of that. Or other businesses, like if you've got a really strong referral partner, like get a link on their website somehow, even if it's just sort of like not prominent, but like, they've got a page set up. The CPA that I recommend is Tom Jones CPA for that, here's his link. Those are valuable links because Google sees that, and especially if that business is well established and has got a lot of authority in that local market area, that will really help.
Yeah.
That's like step number 12 though. Like honestly, for a lot of people is doing that kind of link building. The thing I always like to tell people is in that old phrase, the land of the blind thing, right? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. If you just clean up your NAP, get the secondary listings, feed content, and optimize your GMB, you're going to be doing better than 98% of the people.
Because nobody else is doing that.
Exactly.
However, Nate, this is good. Let me just throw out an idea. This is an idea if you really want to geek out, and this is kind of a ninja session. It's almost tax season. There's PPP stuff floating around. There's other tax changes, possibly with another stimulus bill. You never know. There's a new administration. And if you wanted to write up a long form piece of content about what local area taxpayers should be considering, or the surge of tax resolution cases that you're seeing and what that means and the right steps, how to deal with it. And if you wanted to write that and then go and search for top insurance agency, top financial advisor, top whatever, anything that's a synergistic financial professional service, and reach out to those people, send them an email and say, hey, listen, like I'm a local CPA and I think this is helpful for your crowd. could you either send this out via email, which is not the authority building, that would be a more direct push for just building your network, not a bad idea, but get it on a blog post on their site, but pick the people who already have domain authority, because the way domain authority works is you leech off of each other. If you pick a crappy ranked site, your buddy who has an insurance agency but doesn't show up at all, you're not getting much because he doesn't have authority himself. But like,
But it's better than not
if you
having
were to,
anything. But yes, go on.
totally is. But if you can, this is what link building and why we don't do it and why it's hard is because there's so much like relationship, cold prospecting. But if you were to just sit down before the holidays and write, oh gosh, a couple of pages on a Google Doc of, this is what I've seen, this is what I would think about, these are things that I would encourage, your clientele, professional X, and just see if you can get some bites. And the important part is a link to your site.
Yes.
Well, and let me ask you this, in like in a rural area where there's not a lot of folks optimizing at all, and even if a tax professional gets 3 or 4 links to their site, and their site's like a DA5, and they're getting links from all these other DA5 sites that really, really low domain authority, it still helps, right?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, because
Radio
domain
stations,
authority
sources.
is a national kind of standard,
Right.
but within local areas, like they have a different category for how they characterize that stuff. So it seeds you more into your local market when you've got those local links. And that's why it's valuable. That's why sponsoring the local can drive may have crappy domain authority, but within that area, it's relatively higher traffic. Therefore, it's got functionally more domain authority, if that makes sense.
And by the way, I will kind of challenge you somewhat on the your comment earlier about tax resolution not being local.
No, you're right.
Things that I've
That's
seen
why I like you, Jason.
over the years is that you get these big fly-by-night national companies that have bad reputations. You start looking at their BBB ratings and all that stuff, and people get scared about hiring those big national companies, as they should. And so as part of the evolution of the consumer searching for a service, especially something they're going to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a lot of times, they look at the tax resolution companies that have the national search rankings, but then yes, they do start searching for tax resolution Houston, tax resolution Phoenix, tax resolution Seattle. They do the search numbers are way lower, obviously, but they do start searching locally, and so I actively and vehemently encourage practitioners that are doing tax resolution or any service, expense reduction consulting, tax planning, any service. Don't be afraid to localize your content, localize your link building, all those SEO factors. It's kind of like they say, all politics is local. I think we're clearly in an era where all SEO is local too.
That's what I was going to say that I like about you, Jason, is that I think that sometimes Christian and we end up talking to a lot of people who come out of, let's say, other ponds, other influencers in the tax resolution space who aren't as technically savvy and as service oriented as you are. So let's just leave it there.
It also just so happens that the past 2 months I've spent way too much time inside the Ahrefs software doing keyword research.
That's fun. You are a total nerd, but you make a good point. And that from an SEO standpoint in general, dominate first your smaller pond and go from there. People have these national ambitions when they come to us, and they think, oh, great, but like you're going to have to spend a lot of money on content, a lot of money on link building, because you can't do it. One person cannot do it well for a national presence. And frankly, a way to kickstart that is advertising from a traffic standpoint, because one of the signals for organic is traffic, just in general, hits on the site. So if you get ads driving traffic, you can kickstart your organic rankings down the line. I mean, they're able to discern, so they know that it's just one factor. But nonetheless, that's why we encourage people to try advertising. But it always works better locally, always, always, always. And that's it's a huge, great point. Thank you for interrupting that.
I want to back the truck up now to the NAP conversation, because I think that's one of those technical things that, yes, it's nerdy, but it's something that I see a lot of inconsistency on when people are trying to do this themselves. And I know that a big chunk of what you guys do is you go in and clean up what those inconsistencies, and that's a very laborious process. So what talk about NAP consistency and why that's important and how you do it.
You won't without a system and people behind you, you won't be able to pull off cleaning up the internet, period. If you're brand new, you're safe. You can go to, I'm just going to launch new citations for my business on all these profiles, these second tier profiles beyond Google and Bing, the top ones, right? You can do that if you're new enough in the industry or the internet hasn't indexed you yet. But if you have anything old, man, like what you're doing without a software or a system or people behind you is you are simply Googling your name, your address, your phone number, and you're scrubbing the internet, going to those completely different systems run by those completely different business sites and submitting requests to either get access to your page and update it, or claim it and then go through that process. And guess what? They're not as robust or as well resourced as Google. And so it's just a pain in the butt. And it's a part of the internet in 2020 that you have to, if you really want to do it tight and neat, don't do it yourself. You don't have time for this. This is not a high leverage thing for you to do. But if the question is DIY it myself, but don't. But once you get there, let's just pretend however you get there, you are cleaning it up. What we're saying is, if you're in a suite, Google does have some ability, more than they did 5 years ago, to interpret the pound sign versus SUITE or STE period. You want to be consistent though. Don't leave it to chance. That's still best practices. If you're in a suite, what I'm saying is, don't change the way you represent suite for your address. If you're going to add the LLC with a comma on your business, do it every time. I don't care if you do or don't. I just want you to do it every time. Phone number, again, like some of you have different phone numbers into your office. I don't see that all the time, but I do at times. And again, you just confuse a robot. It is a robot. It's not humans. It's an algorithm.
While we're on the topic of these citations, Christian, why don't you speak to, there's a couple questions that came in that are sort of like tangentially related to this that I think are worth addressing. The first one is when somebody moves, like especially if they move out of market, which this Charles Markham wanted to ask about. How do you handle that with your team when somebody moves out of market? Because I actually don't even know the answer to that question. I'd be interested in what you say. And I know you have an answer for the second question on virtual practices and like people working from their home, because there's a real good, elegant way that Google is now handling that. But so we'll put a pin in that, Gene. And Charles, why don't you talk about moving local market areas, Christian?
The worst thing you can do when you move markets is start a new page. You can do it, but you have reviews, you have an internal authority score, you have relevance with Google. There's a lot to be said, and there's even strategies. These are black hat being in the search engine world, the internet marketing world. Yeah, there's good wizards and there's bad wizards. There's white hat wizards, there's black hat wizards. And a black hat strategy would be, I'm going to go and buy or source existing Google My Business pages and funnel the traffic to my site. Don't ever do that. You're running a really risky game. But the idea of keeping your page and rolling it over out of your market, you're going to have to re-verify it. There is a radius that Google will allow you to move, and you don't necessarily always have to re-verify, or the re-verification is an email or a text or a phone call. But when you go out of market to another state, it's going to be the case that you're going to have to do a postcard, and that's okay. It's not a big deal as long as you know it's coming, you know what to look for. But that postcard is your golden ticket to get re-verified with the same reviews, the same stuff, whatever. That could change. You never know. Google could say, you know what, you move far enough away, you got to make a new page. That's not the case today. And that would not be best practices.
All right, did you see the question, Christian? Do you have access to the questions? Because he talked about Yelp. We used to be certified with Yelp, and if you pay close attention to us, which I assume nobody does, pay attention to the level of granularity towards us, we are no longer certified with Yelp for a variety of reasons. I am not a huge fan of some of the things that we've experienced on the back end with them. And I know businesses we've gotten some good results from our people when we were certified, but they are pretty anal, let's just put that kindly, about certain things. So Yelp is requiring, I guess, Charles, to start an entirely new listing.
I would question that. I'm not for sure that would be the case. What a Yelp rep tells you doesn't always hold water.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why one of the reasons why we don't really. Yeah.
But at a minimum, you can close a Yelp page and start a new one. But again, the loss is if you have Yelp reviews or whatever, that system, again, back to like why you would never want to update your NAP on your own. We're talking about just Google and Yelp, and they're completely different systems for updating pretty core basic information. It's not easy and it's not obvious, and each system is totally different, which is why
Google is more set up. They've got more money, and so they've got people.
Well, they're less of
smart coders.
It's less of a, and I say this gently, but like scam local businesses into doing ads. Like that's Yelp's thing. Like you can get results on Yelp doing ads. You can. I see it all the time, but they're set up to push, do ads, and we're going to make it painful for you to change things if you don't do ads. There's some keys that get opened up to you with easy buttons for stuff like this with Yelp. So here's what I would say, Charles. If you're advertising with Yelp, I bet it wouldn't be that hard. But if you're not, then
pay their extortion fees. I mean, ad fees.
You would want to dig into Reddit, to be honest. If you want to handle this yourself, you're going to go into Reddit and you're going to search for moving my Yelp address and best practices. And again, when we were a Yelp certified partner, we had those keys. We could pull that string for our clients, and it's not a big deal. It was a spreadsheet. I just had a spreadsheet shared with their certified partner team. My guy updated his address, changed his profile, done. They can do it. They might hold your feet to the fire to try and get you to advertise, but just push a little harder, push a little bit harder. And again, their system could have changed. It changes all the freaking time, which is why, again, I don't like Yelp, is the lack of consistency with just knowing what you're going to get. Google's
they've
obviously
they've done something right for certain categories. Let's just not bash them.
Restaurants,
like they're great for restaurants, and they're great for.
I love Yelp.
Dog sitters.
I read the reviews all the time, but when it comes to you guys, it's
and then the virtual practice thing, Christian. Why don't you address that?
Yeah, I'm curious what you have to say about that.
We get that question every time.
I'm sure you do.
Google has good solutions now.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Google is not penalizing you. And let's just get this out of here. Politics aside, Google's in Silicon Valley. It's a liberally focused company politically. They are not denying COVID, and they're not penalizing you for not being in a physical office, right? Like they're making it easy for business owners to move virtual. And that's a part of the ninja tactics, which we might not have time to get to, but like a feature on Google My Business now is appointment scheduling. It's updating your COVID protocols, letting people know on the front end. Yeah, this is in the minutia, but like you can tell Google whether or not you are wheelchair friendly accessible. I mean, there's a lot of things you can trigger for Google that will help people know what they're getting into before they ever show up to your office, which now doesn't happen as much. So what you do is you need a physical address to verify your profile, and it can be your house. You then can hide your address and say, I serve this radius around my physical location. So your address will never show up. You can have your appointment scheduling link right in your Google My Business page. Another optimization piece I would encourage you to get there. It increases conversion. It makes you another signal in their system that you should be sending. But not having a physical address that you're going to work out of is not a problem. Marginally, I could make the case that having a physical location that people could show up to probably helps you a tiny bit, but not enough to worry about it. If you're going to work from home through tax season and you're trying to move that direction, don't even think twice. That's not something that Google's going to penalize you for. And again, a lot of these other profiles aren't as eloquent as Google is at making those distinctions, but Google's fine. That's not a problem in terms of not being in an office. So does that help? Does that answer Gene's question?
In relation to that, what are you guys seeing with commercial mail receiving agents?
UPS store.
Yeah, you have a box at a UPS store way back in the dark ages when I was running my practice in a 5-state region. In several other cities, I went and rented a box like that so I could have an address, so I could receive that stupid little postcard from Google and other sites. If somebody tried to do that now, how badly would that backfire?
Don't do that.
Yeah, it's quite fine.
Don't use Regis. Don't use a mailbox. Don't do anything. It's not going to work. And they are way better at catching this. But I will tell you, I probably won't flesh this out because I don't want to put these ideas in your head because these are the things we tell people not to do. But I still, in this event we were just in Miami, we came across this guy who's working for law firms, and he presented this case of like this strategy that's really antiquated, but for him, for one client is working now. And everyone else in the room who's in tons of different industries and doing high-level SEO is like, don't freaking do this. My point is, you could be the lucky exception that gets verified through those means.
What was he doing?
You would be the exception. Oh gosh, it's stupid. It's working for one client, but what he runs the risk of is for his agency, because other clients are under his home account. If this guy gets flagged, which he will, all of his other people suffer.
Totally will. Yeah.
My point is,
he was doing Regis. He was doing some Regis trickery, wasn't he?
Not exactly.
I was out of the room because I saw where this was going, and I didn't want to be a part of a black hat.
There's actually something on this front that I did want to talk about, because the thing that they got to is really actually true for Google still, but they just did it in a way that's like, oh my God, don't do that. And everyone in the room was like, oh my God, don't do that. But what they did is in like Orlando, I'm not from Orlando, but I'm trying to recall all these sub neighborhoods like Kissimmee or Maitland or whatever. All of these sub neighborhoods, they spun out through a process, 10 different keywords, 50 different locations, 50 different sub neighborhoods. So each keyword gets its own page for each of those locations and spun out. And that is a black to gray hat tactic that used to work in 2009 that no longer is favored. But what they did is
city pages.
Their patent lawyers got ranked in all these markets where he doesn't actually have a physical presence, and he's presenting this like as a ta-da, and it's like, bro, that is the horror story of Google flagging you and you never recover. But one of his clients did well. And so my point is, you can absolutely find someone who's willing to sell you snake oil, and sometimes it works. Placebo is a thing. But at the same time, what he hit on that you should do, which is, again, usually with tax resolution people, the hardest pill to swallow, is if on your website you were to refine more granularly than you want to your target market, just in how you represent it on your website. This doesn't mean this is all the traffic you're going to get, but if you're in Orlando, but you're located out of Kissimmee, and even then a more affluent submarket of that, or whatever market you're in, what that does is, again, the volume is low as you get into these neighborhoods, but it's easier to rank, and that you can get Google ranking you. So when we track keyword ranking, we'll track the base level keyword, accountant, CPA, tax resolution, and we'll track those keywords with a local market modifier. Kissimmee, Florence. The first keywords to always rank, as you'd expect, are not the higher volume. Someone just typed in CPA. And I got a guy I was just looking at this for. He's in Florence, South Carolina. Florence, South Carolina CPA. He started ranking. Is he going to get a bunch of clients from that? No, but because we are designating that on his website, and he was willing. Now, Florence is, again, not a niche neighborhood like I'm suggesting, but like that's a strategy that's just a little bit contrarian for how you might think about things. And it doesn't mean that's all the traffic you're going to get, but that's how you start to get quick wins organically, as you target a small enough area on your physical website, like these guys were doing on these spun out landing pages that are totally spammy, totally duplicated content, totally crappy. It's not just one pager with like a couple of paragraphs and new keyword, new local area. Don't do it. I am regretting even telling you, because some of you might think that's a good idea. Don't do it.
Well, I'll from the tax resolution world, I'll tell you a brief story. Many moons ago, one of the largest tax resolution firms in the country, they're bankrupt now, so I don't mind mentioning their name, but it was a company called J.K. Harris. They were at one point literally the.
Do you know that?
Yeah, I know the story. Yeah,
with Chauncey.
Yeah, they were the largest tax resolution company in the nation. They were based out of South Carolina, and the way their sales apparatus worked is they would rent Regis office locations everywhere in the United States where there was a Regis office location. So they bragged about having 3,000 locations. They had a huge Regis bill. They did exactly what you were just describing, in on the systems that existed back in 08, 09. And they bragged about being local, right? They were a local company.
Right.
And one of the reasons why they went bankrupt was because the high cost of trying to maintain that false image and having, field sales reps that were bouncing around a geographic area and paying all those Regis bills. That was a big chunk of why they ended up going bankrupt.
Interesting. That's interesting. So, Mark wants to know the story. Well, just briefly, J.K. Harris, it was John, I think is his first name, was one of Chauncey's first coaching clients.
Okay.
Way back in the day, in the early 2000s, before I worked with Chauncey a long time ago, Chauncey Hutter. So yeah, anyway, but also, there's other stories not related to Chauncey, but just J.K. Harris. But
well, and we've got a couple of people asking related questions.
Regis is not bad if it's for real.
Right.
It's just don't expect that you're going to generate a lot of business from that GMB.
You're going to get nothing. You can get a Regis office. You can do whatever the hell you want. But if you're asking, are you going to get local traffic from it? The answer is, unless you are the lucky first person to claim that address forevermore getting locked in, what Google is going to do, you're going to go to build your profile or claim your profile and move it to the Regis address. And it's going to be like, hey, there's already a business at this address. Is this you? And you're going to say, no, that's not me. And then they're going to say, okay, we'll still build you a new profile. And then it's immediately suspended. Right. And then it's immediately, you need to do and this happens, you have to do a video call with someone in India with Google, showing them that you have a dedicated personalized space with a distinct address. And all of you are sharing the same address. It's slightly different if you're at a co-working space or a space where you have a suite number. So if you're out of an insurance agency and they're just giving you a suite and it's suite 101, that's distinct. That's totally distinct. That's fine. But
it's going to be a deliverable address.
Yes, that is unique to you, that no one else is trying to claim. Because with Regis, you have a lot of people that try to do.
Yeah, they don't have suite numbers with Regis. It's just one address. So
one address. And one person gets lucky, and 99 others are like, "Oh crap! I thought this would work."
It's an issue. I think Regis probably is going to fix it at some point because it's not. I'm sure they've lost a bunch of revenue because of that.
Unintended consequences of having that model. Because I'm sure the point of them opening was not to have people gamify Google, but that's what people try and use it for. Don't gamify Google with that. And again,
Aviv, this is a totally random question. Click to mail is direct mail. We're not talking about direct mail. It's great. It's fine. Use direct mail. Postcards are awesome.
I use it all the time.
Yep. But I mean, I like online marketing personally because I like being that nerdy nerd. But there's a few ninja things because how much time do we have for this, Jason? And I know Christian doesn't have forever, but what did you allocate?
I allocated an hour. We can go long if you can, if you want.
I mean,
I've got probably another 30 minutes if we need. It's okay.
Okay. So Jason, you might have a few more questions, but Christian, why don't you talk about this new thing related to content? And I alluded to it in my email that I sent out to our list. Related to content posting on Google My Business. We haven't even touched on content posting and how that's showing up now in a newsfeed style format.
That's huge.
It's really interesting. I mean, it's not going to be like Facebook in the same way. I don't think people are going to go there to be entertained like they do with Facebook, but it will be something that you will see. It's sort of like suggested, but it's more prominent than that?
It's exactly that. In Google Maps now, I think it's rolled out entirely. It might still be making its way. So if you look for it and don't see it, it's probably coming. But you have Google Posts, which can include content and photos. You have Google Reviews. There's lots of little pieces of information that Google's now aggregating in a newsfeed of sorts. And it matters because, one, it's visibility for you with people that are looking in your area. So if they look for accountant, they can flip over to this newsfeed and see, oh my gosh.
This was an official announcement from Google. They like prominently do this. It's called community feed.
This was an official announcement.
Yes,
did you say it wasn't?
Yes.
Yeah, this was an official.
Yes.
This is out there in the open now. It just sometimes there's a lag in everyone seeing it. But it's in your Google Maps app. That's where you would see this, and local guides.
It might not affect our people as much, just because I think they're trying to like use this for like restaurants and like what's happening in the local area kind of vibe.
Yes and no.
But you can get
obviously in there. You don't even have to get in there. You just have to run the play of getting reviews and posting. It'll automatically go there. But the other piece of data on this that's also incredibly important is Google is starting to show in reviews new. 4 weeks and newer, there will be at times, again, you might not see this in your industry or for your reviews yet, but they will label a customer review as new for the first 4 weeks. And so that recency is a factor that is becoming more relevant. And gosh, let me just tell you, like,
the review itself.
Of the review itself, of your client's review saying new, this tag. So just take the hint. If Google is taking the time to label it, it's because they care about frequency, not just total. Your total amount it matters. You should not just have 5. You should have 30, but you should also be getting a new review at least every month. And during tax season, if you guys don't have a plan to get reviews during tax season, I just don't know what else I can tell you.
So let me also just say this on reviews. We could talk a whole thing on reviews. We're actually for our clients, we're gonna do a whole office hours. So if you're one of our clients who's on this somehow, I think I saw a few people who are existing. We're gonna do a whole hour on reviews for, because there's a lot of this you need to kind of generate, because there's ways to game the system with reviews, but it really is mostly you asking your people to send them. So you've got to have 4 stars or above. Like that's like job one. You got to get your star rating over 4 stars, because the majority of consumers, per survey and research and data, won't work with somebody under 4 stars. 4 point whatever, doesn't matter as long as it's 4 and above. That matters.
The content feed, for the content feed portion?
No, for reviews. Well, we stopped talking about content feed. Okay.
But for the content feed portion, I'm looking at results right now. Are you guys, for your clients, are you taking the same content that you'll drip into like their Facebook business page?
Similar. We adjust it for Google specifically.
So you are doing that. Okay.
Yeah, we have. I mean, it's similar
once
content.
A week.
Yeah, but we like there's different like requirements that Google has relative to Facebook. So we post every day for our clients on Facebook.
Right.
We handle replies, all that stuff. We do the same in Google My Business, but it's just different. It's sometimes more than once a week, but Christian, our social media folks have been doing a couple times a week now, but for Google My Business. But anyway, the point is there's different formatting for Google My Business.
And here's the reason why once a week is a good rule of thumb, is because the posts expire and the posts can also show up beneath your sidebar box for your business, right? So your Google My Business page can show up in different ways. It can show up in the map, it can show up on the side. If you search for your own business, you should have an authoritative sidebar box that shows up with more robust details of your business if you've done it right. And your posts get aggregated there, but they expire after a week. So that's one nuance. Again, that could change with Google as they move towards this feed, but that's still the case, that they expire after 1 week, which is different than Facebook. Obviously, yet again, send signals. So like sending signals to Google, this is not that, but this is just like another level of like deep ninja SEO that we hear about. We haven't like encouraged our clients to fully do this yet. We've hinted at it on webinars. This is in the minutia, this is in the weeds, but like unto a competitive advantage of sending signals to Google, there are people that recommend that every day when you go to your office, you go into Google Maps, you type in your business, your address, and you click get directions. Obviously, you know how to get to your business, but that is a signal that Google will see, oh, someone is getting directions to this business. Call your business via Google Maps when you need to call.
Yes.
Or
I love that you're talking about this stuff. It's so nerdy and cool. Yes. Have your staff use the Maps app every day. It's every weird, crazy signal, but it's awesome.
Like you're telling, what you're saying is that your staff, when they're sitting in their driveway at home,
yes,
they should put I'm going to work. I know how to get to work, but I should put in the address or
drive to it.
Yes.
Get directions and drive.
Yes, and drive.
Correct.
It'll send signals to the robots that are great. That's kind of a hack. It's kind of black hat, but it's also not. It's not something that they're going to penalize. I'm just in the sense that it's gaming the system, but like it's manually doing.
You're not in any danger by doing
this. No,
this.
you're no danger. It's
no
gray
problem
hat. Let's put it that way. It's gray hat.
It's a gray hat. It's like in between, like, okay, like that's not what we intended by this, but it's okay. And you're not gonna be able to stop it.
And you can do it for yourself too.
Do it every day. Yeah. It's
navigate
not the
to
silver
your
bullet. It's just if you are in a competitive market and you're looking to send those early signals, again, pick a hyper niche neighborhood, and that's your target market on your website. Get your Google Maps open every day and go to your business.
Even better is if you do a non-direct search to find it. Like if you do like accountant, and find your yourself. Thing and select it and navigate.
Which is discovery versus direct.
Aren't they tracking IP addresses though to the same IP address is doing the same search every morning? I mean,
eventually they figure it out, but what we've seen is that this works. So,
and I would argue no. I would argue that is not a high priority for them because I'm
not sure how they would be able to technically pull off the differentiation between those who are like legitimate, unless they've got like your personal Google sign-in attached to
the only thing that could ever hamper this strategy is if they somehow were able to connect the dots between your Google account and the primary owner of your Google My Business page.
Sure.
But I just don't think they've made that connection yet. I don't think that's a thing that they're messing with.
And then you never know. Back to this content feed. How are people interacting and finding this content feed?
On the Google Maps
app. It's
not
a comment engine. People don't comment on the content. It's just stuff that the business owner can put out.
So it's only on the app.
I pulled up my app. Okay, so I'm not searching for anything, and I go down. Here you go. That's on your Google Maps app now.
So those are local businesses that have uploaded photos of food or whatever you're looking at.
Yep.
And it just shows
Christian
up in a
likes
personalized
food.
feed because you're there locally.
Yeah, and Christian does a lot of food searches, so on his thing, you're going to see food stuff because he likes.
Because I travel with you, Nate.
So how could somebody use that to?
So you missed it. What Christian said. You don't gamify that.
Practice.
All you do to use it is just post content to your Google My Business page. Be posting photos. Be posting news stuff. And regularly posting to your Google My Business page.
So since everybody is using their Google Maps to search for food, should we all be doing what the early days of Twitter and Instagram were, and everybody takes a picture of their lunch and they post it on their GMB page because then it shows food?
That's not synergistic. Like you also want to think conversion, right? Like you want to think like when people get to the page, like you can have two tracks with this, and one is traffic, one is conversion. And I really want to make sure that whatever you do for traffic doesn't hurt your conversion, and whatever you do for conversion doesn't hurt your traffic, right? So posting your lunch, that is like discordant, and I think it would
So
not
what should
be
we be posting?
tax code updates, photos of your staff, client that you really like, and say, hey, this client is awesome.
With a photo.
With a photo. Do like, pictures of you, like, in front of your screen, like furiously, submitting paperwork to the IRS, whatever. Stupid stuff, but like just all related to your line of work. But not
with a
like
link to your website.
Yes, not cat pictures or stuff that you would do on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Everything related to the business. Yeah.
So this is your Google Maps app on your iPhone or your Android now is simply going to aggregate recent updates around you, and you guys get free visibility with people in your area. They're not even searching for you yet. If you just are getting reviews or posts, it's just a free banner for you because you did the thing, because you posted content or got a review. That's why this matters. People can see, again, mine is a lot of food because it's lunchtime, and shocker, most other businesses besides restaurants aren't using these features from Google. Right. But like local guides get preference. So if you're a Google local guide, your stuff's going to get, obviously some type of weight in this algorithm. But this is one for a really, it's not crappy, but I don't like it. This is like, I don't even know if you can see this. It's like for this little strip shopping mall that has an AMC Theaters, Trader Joe's, and a bunch of weird local shops. And they posted a picture of like ornamental penguins. And that's in my Google Maps feed. So okay. My point is, whatever gets posted gets in that feed. You might as well be there. You might as well show up when someone pulls up their Google Maps app and they're about to do a search for tax. Oh my God, here's this guy leaving a review, which means you.
Well, and even if they're not doing a search for tax, like this, exactly. The Maps app is
just
like,
show up there.
Yeah, like the Maps app is something that a lot of people are looking at now, and they're using it as a primary search engine now. People aren't going into Google Chrome or Safari on their phones to like search for like local businesses. They just go right into the Maps app and search there. And so that's why you've got to optimize everything. Right. This is the whole point of the conversation. Like, and that's maybe a good way to kind of like move towards wrapping is like this stuff really, really matters. Because consumer behavior has shifted, because the majority of searches are now done on a mobile device, because like the data just tells us with our clients and with just Google in general, when like smarter people than us who are really digging into the data on this stuff, this stuff just matters. So
it begs the question of a much bigger question that we probably don't really have time to get into, but the whole thing of having a mobile first strategy for your digital marketing in general.
Right.
What are your high level thoughts, if you will, on mobile first?
Well, people think that just means related to your website design, and that's kind of how that really matters. So like you build a website with the mobile layout kind of as the primary thing. That's mobile first. That's different from mobile responsive, which is like a website that'll kind of adjust. It almost doesn't really matter. Kind of the state of the art is mobile first because of the data, and that's what we're working with too. But what matters more isn't the user experience on your website. That matters, but all the things that Christian has talked about today actually matter more. So the mobile first strategy for a local professional services firm like all of us, okay, on this webinar, is actually getting your Google My Business stuff nailed. So, and maybe that isn't like the official, doctrine that mobile first means, but what we have seen with our clients is that like the data, we're getting massive traction on the people who do the Google My Business stuff well, and we do it for people. But we've run into maybe like, so we do these free lead flow acceleration sessions with people, and so this has been a really good shift for us. Just again, since we're talking informally, we used to present our services in such a way where like I'd teach and then at the end be like, okay, the first 7 some odd people get a discount, go to this link, sign up, you know. But we found that like we would sell well and we're good at selling, but like, and we did fine. But like we found that we're not serving our people as well as if when like they might have questions and they talk to Christian or they talk to Ben on our team that you know, Jassen, or other people on our staff, Troy, who used to do a lot of these conversations. And those kind of clients actually had the most success because we would talk to them through all their strategy and how what we would do would align with their goals. So we made the shift a couple of years ago that we have to have a conversation if you want to work with us. But we also don't want this to be a sales pitch. And so we actually like have engineered these acceleration sessions for our people where we talk through your goals and your strategies, and we offer a prescription and we offer people the opportunity to like just do it for themselves. And we will point out the pitfalls and give them a report that like they can crib off of and like try to fix their NAP issues. And or you know, we'll talk to them how we can help them, and we can like provide various options for people how we can just do a lot of this for you. So if you want that, and this isn't the point of this, but if you want that, go to taxpromarketer.com/flow, or let me give you a few different URLs because sometimes these get like because I can't type it into the chat. You can also go to go.taxpromarketer.com, or you could go to talktotpm.com, and they will all serve up the same page that will give you some questions that you can fill out to get a free conversation where we can look at this stuff with you. And if you want to use our services, great. You know, it's not a sales pitch. We'll give you the options, but we really will take you by the hand and look at this stuff. Anyway, I got talking about this and I forgot what made me start saying this. Can you
I was asking you about mobile
first. Okay.
Across your entire digital marketing strategy.
Right. So we're seeing this mobile first stuff in relation to web design. That's how people talk about it. But what Christian has talked about today is, and thank you for reorienting my thought. What Christian has talked about today and what we could do for you if you want us to or not, doesn't matter. All of this stuff is going to be the more important mobile strategy. Christian, anything to add to what I said?
Nope. It's perfect.
So just kind of to wrap up here, we were mainly talking about Google My Business. In terms of your workflow when a tax professional hires you to work on their marketing, where does GMB fall in terms of the priority order? In terms of what you do first and when?
Go
ahead, Nate.
No, you. Well, I was going to say the first thing we do is email marketing when we work with people, because that's like easy, quick win. But when we're building crap, Christian, why don't you?
Anytime we get a new client who wants to sign up with us on that same call, the first thing I'll do is kind of orient them on our onboarding. But then if you got a page, I'm getting access to it right now because I want to get that thing updated this day or tomorrow. That's the first thing that we take care of.
Yeah.
It's that important.
Oh,
it's that important,
that's what I was getting at.
And it's something that shouldn't be missed in the process of getting what is for us a large digital ecosystem set up. We just, in how we've built our production, it's not only that important, but like if your Facebook page, if we just don't communicate for a couple of weeks, it's the holidays and okay, now we've got it in early January. Okay, that's okay. It's not great, but like if we don't get your Google My Business page, especially this time of year, it's just a lot of important lost time that I and my other associates who do these onboarding calls, we just get it right then and there. We're just going to get it. We're going to optimize it. We're going to do the categories. We're going to update it. We're going to start posting to it. We're going to connect our review system to it. All of that's going to be done in the first like couple of weeks, but I'm getting that profile acquired on call number 1.
You know, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I will. It was only last week that I learned that Google has, it's very similar to the snack pack listings, and it shows up on the right-hand side. If you're a influencer, I hate that term, but if you're an influencer or thought leader, then you have your own special little thing on the sidebar.
Yep.
I'd seen it for other people. It never occurred to me that I was anybody enough to have one myself, but I do.
Yeah.
And so I went through the process of claiming it. Something I should
Takes
have
a few
done
days.
years ago. I should have done it years ago. And it's very similar to your GMB profile. My reason for mentioning that is even those of us that are, immersed in this, we sometimes miss some of these low-hanging fruit also.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to say, Jason, because there's so many things that are changing all the time,
Right.
and what we're recommending now might be different than what we recommend this summer. We haven't said anything that I think would be really dramatically different, but it's okay that you haven't gotten this set up yet. I just want to, everybody who's listening, we have utilized the tool of shame a little bit to tell you this is really important. If you haven't done it, do it. But you're not alone, and there's a very good chance that in your local market area, even some of your prominent competitors have not gone through this process. Just because it can be a little confusing and like a hall of mirrors to kind of figure out how to do it right. And there's so much information online about how to do it. So what we've shared today is, yes, we've shared some data and studies and such, but Christian's mostly just talking from experience of doing this stuff. Christian did all this stuff by hand for our company for years. Now he has a team under him, but he was the guy who actually really pushed me in this area. And he was the guy who saw this coming 5 years ago and was like, this is a big deal. And we've got to make this a cornerstone of our strategy to help clients. And so Christian's just been doing this and doing this and doing this. We talk to people all the time who haven't done it, and then we do it or they do it for themselves, and good things happen still. So you're not too far behind the 8 ball.
Excellent. And so everybody head on over to talk2tpm.com, schedule that consult. Is that usually done with Christian these days?
Or Ben, typically, Christian
okay.
Or Ben, who's our director of advertising. But they're both operators. I mean, these are guys,
right.
And by that I mean ninja warriors, who are doing this stuff.
They're not commissioned salespeople.
No,
they're actually technical digital marketing people. That's a huge difference, I think, in having that conversation.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here for this. This was a pleasure. I hope all of our listeners got some great info out of it. And I really look forward to doing this again soon.
Good deal. All right.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
See ya.
Again, that's talk2tpm.com.
Indeed. We're
Last
here.
plug.
See you guys. Bye.
See you guys.